The entire village was completely deserted. Not a single soul could be seen. The houses stood in darkness, with no lights, no voices, no signs of life. When night fell, no one dared to come near this place, not because of wild animals, but because the people who once lived here had died long ago, yet were still said to linger inside their own homes. And the story you are about to hear is a true story, passed down through generations, told by the ancestor of my family, and said to have happened many lifetimes ago. In the past, my ancestor and a close friend often traveled through distant villages to buy buffaloes and bring them back to sell. One day they managed to buy 2 buffaloes in a village far from home. By the time the deal was finished, the afternoon had already passed and the road back was still long. So they decided to look for a place to ask for some water and stay the night, planning to return home the next morning. They walked for a long time, and soon darkness fell. The village they passed through felt strange. There were no people, no lights in the houses, no sounds at all. Just as they were beginning to worry, they noticed a faint oil lamp flickering at the far end of the village, coming from a large house. Although something felt unsettling, they thought to themselves, this must be a wealthy household. Asking to stay the night should be fine. They led the buffaloes into the yard, tied them in front of the house, and washed their hands and faces at a large water jar by the entrance. When they stepped inside, they saw 2 wooden platforms placed on opposite sides of the room, each lit by a dim oil lamp. On the left platform lay an old man, and on the right an old woman. Under the weak glow of the lamps, their faces were wrinkled, dry and pale, like rotting wood that had been buried for hundreds of years. The 2 travelers bowed politely and asked if they could rest there for the night, promising to leave early the next morning. The elderly couple smiled warmly and called for servants to prepare dinner for their guests. The travelers were relieved, as it was already late and they were extremely hungry. They thought to themselves, how lucky we are to meet such kind people in such a deserted place at this hour. They sat and talked for a long time. Time passed, and soon it was almost midnight, yet no food had been served. From the back of the house, they could still hear the sound of cooking, and the smell of food filled the air. Unable to bear the hunger any longer, one of the men asked to step outside to relieve himself and secretly check what was taking so long. As he passed by the kitchen, he quietly peeked through a crack in the window, and in that exact moment, his blood ran cold. Inside the kitchen were no servants. Instead, he saw 2 demons with the heads of buffaloes, the faces of horses, and terrifying claws. They stood beside a large pan set over a blazing fire, scraping it with their elbows, making a sharp sizzling sound. But inside the pan, there was no food at all. Terrified beyond words, he stumbled back toward the front room. But when he looked inside again, he froze. The elderly couple were no longer lying on the wooden platforms. In their place were 2 coffins, positioned exactly where the platforms had been, with the same dim oil lamps flickering beside them. Trembling uncontrollably, he nudged his companion, signaling that they must flee immediately. Without a single word, they rushed into the yard, untied the buffaloes, and shouted as they forced them to run. Behind them, they heard horrifying screams, the howls of demons chasing close behind. They ran for their lives through the darkness, not stopping for a long time. Only when the sounds of pursuit faded did they dare to stop and catch their breath. That was when they realized they had reached the neighboring village. This village was full of people. Seeing the 2 men in panic, the villagers gathered around and asked what had happened. After hearing the story, the villagers turned pale. They explained that the elderly couple in that house had died long ago. In the past, according to tradition, the dead were kept inside the house for many days while waiting for distant relatives to return. But when the coffins were finally taken out and buried in the fields, the next morning they were found back inside the house. The family buried them again, but once more the coffins returned. Terrified, the descendants eventually fled, and one by one the surrounding villagers abandoned the area. It is believed that the old couple had turned into demons, unable to let go of their wealth and unwilling to leave their home. And so the village became abandoned, silent and forgotten, remaining that way until this very day. That is why there are places where no one dares to go, day or night. If you ever pass by a deserted village, remember this: not every light you see in the darkness belongs to the living. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoy true spiritual tales passed down through generations, please like, share, and subscribe to Misty Tales so you won't miss the next story. And perhaps one of the stories you hear next will make you hesitate before turning off the lights to sleep.